Minnesota's dark secret, the Jacob Wetterling Disappearance. The night was quiet in St. Joseph, Minnesota, but that calm was about to shatter forever. 11-year-old Jacob Wetterling rode his bike down the dimly lit streets, his backpack bouncing with each pedal. He was supposed to be home minutes ago, but his curiosity had led him a little farther than usual. Then, without warning, a car slowly rolled to a stop beside him. A man stepped out, calm at first, almost friendly, but there was a coldness in his eyes that made Jacob freeze. "Hey, kid," the man said, his voice soft but firm. "Come with me. I need your help." Jacob hesitated, his heart pounding. Every instinct screamed for him to run, but the man's presence was imposing. He grabbed Jacob's arm, and before anyone in the quiet neighborhood could react, they were gone. The only evidence left behind was the bike, abandoned on the curb, its kickstand weak and wobbly. The town awoke the next morning to a nightmare no parent ever wants to face. Jacob hadn't come home. His parents, Danny and Patty Wetterling, searched every corner of the neighborhood, their calls growing frantic as minutes turned into hours. The police were called, and suddenly the peaceful town was thrown into chaos. News crews swarmed, neighbors whispered in shock, and every parent felt a shiver of fear as the chilling realization set in. A child had vanished in their own streets. But what no one knew was just how deep this darkness went. There was no ransom note, no clear motive, no trace of Jacob. Weeks would pass, months would stretch on, and still every lead turned cold. The man who took him was careful, calculated, and hidden in plain sight. As the investigation unfolded, the police uncovered chilling details about the abduction that made the town wonder. Could someone so sinister be living right among them, unnoticed? And while Jacob, his family held on to hope, every day brought a growing dread, because the answers they sought were buried somewhere dark, far from the sunlight of their small town. Then came the first real breakthrough, a clue that promised answers, but also hinted at horrors beyond imagination. What the authorities would discover next would shake the nation and change the way the United States protects its children forever. But before anyone could piece it all together, the case took a turn so shocking, so impossible to ignore, that it left everyone asking the same desperate question: where was Jacob Wetterling, and would he ever be found? And that question would haunt the town for decades. The town of St. Joseph, Minnesota, would never feel the same again. Jacob Wetterling's disappearance had turned quiet streets into corridors of fear. Every parent watched their children with suspicion. Every shadow seemed dangerous, and whispers of what might have happened spread faster than the morning sun. The local police were working around the clock, but the case was unlike anything they had faced before. There were no witnesses, no clear suspects, and no ransom note. It was as if Jacob had simply vanished into thin air. Danny and Patty Wetterling were consumed with worry. Days blurred into nights as they combed the town, calling Jacob's name until their voices were hoarse. Flyers with his smiling face covered every telephone pole, every corner store, every lamppost. Each time someone spotted a boy resembling Jacob, hope flared briefly, only to crash when the lead turned out to be another child entirely. The uncertainty was crushing, and the family clung to the smallest signs, desperate for answers. The police began digging into every possible angle. They interviewed neighbors, school friends, and even people Jacob had never met. One detail troubled investigators immediately: the abdu. Carter had been careful. There were no tire marks indicating a sudden chase, no fingerprints, and no evidence left behind at all. It was a crime executed with precision, a sinister plan hidden beneath the calm veneer of a small town. As the investigation continued, the story started to grip the nation. News reports ran daily, describing Jacob as a bright, curious boy who loved sports, riding his bike, and spending time with his friends. People across the country were shocked that something so horrifying could happen in a place that seemed so safe. Minnesota, a state known for its lakes and quiet neighborhoods, was now linked to one of the most chilling abductions in American history. Months passed, but leads remained scarce. The community held vigils, and the Wetterlings refused to let their hope die. Every day brought a mix of fear and determination. Fear of what might have happened to Jacob, and determination to find him alive. Meanwhile, authorities expanded their search, examining everyone who lived nearby, cross-checking records, and even reviewing past crimes that might connect to Jacob's disappearance. But the case remained frustratingly elusive. Then came a breakthrough, one that would finally reveal that the abduction was not just an isolated act of cruelty. Investigators discovered that Jacob's disappearance fit a pattern. Similar cases of children vanishing without explanation in nearby towns over previous years. Suddenly, the abduction was no longer a mystery of one boy, but potentially part of something far more terrifying. The thought that a predator could operate unnoticed for years sent shivers through every parent in Minnesota. As the investigation unfolded, the police turned to the public for help. They released composite sketches of potential suspects, circulated photographs, and even consulted criminal psychologists to try to understand the mind of someone capable of such a crime. Each clue raised more questions than answers. Was Jacob alive somewhere, scared and trapped? Or had the worst fears of the community already come true? The uncertainty fueled national attention, with media outlets following every development, every rumor, and every dead end. Meanwhile, life for Jacob's family remained frozen in a nightmare. Danny and Patty tried to maintain routines, but nothing could erase the fear that gripped their hearts. Every school bus that passed their home, every stranger on the street, every unexpected knock at the door triggered panic. Yet despite the terror, they refused to give up. They spoke at rallies, appeared on national television, and worked tirelessly with law enforcement to keep Jacob's case alive. Their determination became a symbol of hope for families everywhere, showing that love and perseverance could shine even in the darkest moments. Years went by, and Jacob's disappearance remained a haunting mystery. The case became one of the most well-known missing child investigations in American history. The Wetterlings never stopped searching, but while the family clung to hope, the reality was grim. The abductor had left almost no trace, and time was slipping away. Every passing day made finding Jacob alive seem more unlikely, and the sense of urgency grew with each anniversary of his disappearance. By the late 1990s, the story had changed the way the nation thought about child safety. Parents began teaching their children about strangers in new ways. Schools implemented stricter safety policies, and the government introduced the first version of the Child Abduction Alert System. Jacob's disappearance was no longer just a tragedy for one family. It had sparked nationwide awareness and a push for stronger protections for children. Despite all this, the question remained, where was Jacob Wetterling, and who was the man responsible for taking him that night in 1989? For decades, the town, the family, and the entire coup were haunted by these unanswered questions. Every lead was chased, every tip was investigated, but the abductor remained hidden, blending into ordinary life while the case became colder with every passing year. Then, in the mid-2010s, a shocking development reignited hope and fear at the same time. Authorities received information that would finally begin to unravel the truth behind Jacob's disappearance. A confession that revealed details only the abductor could have known. The revelation was horrifying, chilling, and almost unimaginable. It confirmed the worst fears about the darkness lurking within the seemingly quiet neighborhoods of Minnesota. But even with this breakthrough, not everything was revealed at once. The full extent of what had happened to Jacob and how long his torment had lasted remained shrouded in secrecy. Investigators could only piece together fragments, each one painting a grim picture of the abductor's cruelty and planning. And while the confession brought some answers, it also opened new questions, new fears, and a renewed sense of urgency to bring justice for Jacob. The story of Jacob Wetterling was no longer just a missing child case. It had become a tale of obsession, evil, and the resilience of those who refused to give up hope. The abduction that started on that quiet Minnesota night had rippled across decades, affecting countless lives and shaping laws that protect children to this day. And yet, as the investigators delved deeper into the confession and the chilling details it revealed, one truth became painfully clear. What had happened to Jacob was far worse than anyone had imagined. The darkness that had taken him was part of something far larger, and the full story was only beginning to emerge. The town of St. Joseph, the Wetterling family, and the nation now faced a terrifying question. Could justice truly be served after so many years? And what horrifying secrets were still waiting to be uncovered in the shadows? For decades, the disappearance of Jacob Wetterling haunted Minnesota and the entire nation. Families kept their children close, schools tightened safety measures, and the public never stopped asking the same question: where was Jacob? The quiet streets of St. Joseph seemed forever shadowed by fear and uncertainty. But in 2016, after 27 years of tormenting questions and endless investigation, the unimaginable finally happened. The case broke open in a way that shocked everyone. Authorities arrested a man named Danny Heinrich, a neighbor with a seemingly ordinary life. But hidden behind that everyday facade was a dark secret: the man who had taken Jacob on that fateful night. Heinrich eventually confessed to the abduction, revealing horrifying details about how he had lured Jacob and held him captive. The confession answered some questions, but left the town stunned, realizing the depth of cruelty that had existed right under their noses. Even with the confession, the story was far from simple. Jacob's remains had been hidden, and while authorities finally knew the truth, the pain and suffering the Wetterlings endured over decades couldn't be erased. The community that once believed in the safety of their streets now had to grapple with the reality that evil could exist anywhere, in the quiet neighborhoods, among ordinary faces, unseen and unnoticed. The investigation also uncovered that Heinrich had been a suspect in other child abduction cases and that his criminal actions spanned years. Each revelation was chilling, showing how meticulously he had avoided detection. The confession provided relief in some ways, finally giving the family closure, but it also reopened old wounds as the details of the abduction were revealed. For Jacob's parents, the discovery of their son's fate was bittersweet. Justice had been served, but nothing could return the years stolen from their lives. This case changed more than just one family. The Jacob Wetterling case led to significant changes in how the United States handles child safety and missing children. The Jacob Wetterling Crimes Against Children and Sexually Violent Offender Registration Act became a cornerstone of child protection, requiring sex offenders to register with local authorities. His story inspired parents, communities, and lawmakers to act proactively, making sure no child would ever be left in the dark again. The emotional journey of the Wetterling family captured the nation's heart. Danny and Patty's relentless determination to find their son, even when the odds seemed impossible, became a symbol of hope for families everywhere. Their advocacy brought awareness to child abduction cases and inspired countless efforts to strengthen laws protecting children across America. Even after the devastating truth, their love and courage remained unbroken, showing the power of perseverance against unimaginable odds. But the story of Jacob Wetterling is not just about tragedy, it's about resilience. The quiet heroism of the Wetterlings, the tireless work of law enforcement, and the attention of a vigilant nation finally converged to bring closure to a case that had haunted the country for decades. Yet the shadows of what happened lingered, serving as a haunting reminder that vigilance and awareness are always necessary. As viewers reflect on this chilling case, it's impossible not to feel the tension, the fear, and the heartbreak that gripped a small town for nearly 3 decades. Jacob's story teaches us that even in ordinary places, darkness can lurk, but courage, love, and relentless determination can shine through the deepest shadows. And now, as we close the chapter on Jacob Wetterling's story, we are left with a final, haunting question. How many other mysteries like this exist, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered? If you felt the suspense, heartbreak, and triumph of this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with friends who love real crime stories. There are countless mysteries like Jacob's waiting to be explored, and every week we bring the most shocking, real-life cases from across the United States straight to your screen. Check out our other videos for more chilling stories of disappearances, investigations, and shocking confessions. Hit the bell icon so you'll never miss a true crime story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Remember, every story you watch here is based on real events in America, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and most importantly, stay with us as we uncover the darkest secrets hidden in plain sight. Jacob Wetterling's story may have reached its resolution, but the hunt for truth never ends.